Hey, what's up, guys? Back again, and I'm recovering from a cold. So if you're wondering why I sound this way the whole video, that's why. But the show must go on. I went and saw The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, or The Conjuring 3, which honestly, whether whether I like this movie or not, I don't know why this movie wasn't just called Conjuring 3 since the other two were, or since Conjuring 2 was called Conjuring 2. I don't get that. The only reason I think they made that choice is probably because they had 7 or 8 Conjuring movies now, like in the universe, like not all called The Conjuring, but you know what I mean. So maybe that's why. But I feel like regardless, people will still have seen it. Like A Quiet Place 2, like people saw that definitely. So I just don't know why they changed the third title or the third movie that's called The Conjuring not to be called The Conjuring 3, which is a little complaining nitpick, but still, it kind of bugged me. Um, but anyways, Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. This is, like I said, the newest Conjuring movie. There are, I think, 7 or 8 Conjuring movies now. I can't remember if this one makes 8 or 7, but I really enjoy the franchise. For the most part, I like almost all of them. I don't think there's one I absolutely don't dislike or hate. I really don't hate any of them. I think that they all can be entertaining or fun, and I'm gonna do a ranking video as well, little later in the week. But as of now, Conjuring 3, and I'm just going to call it Conjuring 3, even though they don't call it that. But Conjuring 3 to me, it's surprising because I went and saw the movie. Watching it most of the time, I was like, man, I really, really, really like this movie. I really thought it did a good job of being entertaining and really just fun. Or not fun, I guess. Well, actually fun in some ways, emotional in some ways. It was pretty intense with the intensity. Um, but looking at it compared to 1 and 2, people, before I even saw it, everybody was saying this is so bad, or it's so worse compared to 1 and 2. Now, looking at this movie comparatively to 1 and 2, which I think James Wan directed. Did he direct the second one? I know he at least directed the first one. Um, the first two, I really love the first. I love the second one. The second one's my favorite overall out of all of them. The first one I think is great as well. Um, this one, it's so weird because this is by a different director. I think it's from the director of Curse of La Llorona, which is another Conjuring movie, even though it wasn't marketed as that. And that's one of the lesser ones, but I remember enjoying it. But this is without saying how I feel about this movie. This movie does feel, the more I think about it, it feels less so like the first two movies in terms of style and in terms of being as fluid or competent as James Wan's two movies, if that makes sense. Um, the complaints I'm going to give for this movie are not a lot, but I'm going to say them first because there's not that many. The complaints I got out of this movie is I thought that it was really, really good for the first like 2/3, and the third act is good. I really do like it, but I felt like it started dragging. It felt like there was a moment where said thing happens like 2/3 of the way in, and then I'm like, man, it almost feels satisfying enough to end here, and then it keeps going, and it where it goes I do like, but I just felt like there was a weird pacing point there where I'm like, man, I wish that it would have kind of resolved here and the movie would have ended. Even though I did really like the ending, I liked how nice and sweet it was, but I thought that the movie could have ended in the second act, if that makes sense. And I know strategically that's not what I mean in terms of it doesn't work without a third act, but it felt like it kind of was pushing towards that in the second act. But regardless of that, like that complaint is a little one. Like I don't really think it's a complaint to make or break the movie. And there's a couple little things without spoiling it that I thought were a little silly. Like there was this one creature which is just kind of a big fat person. I thought that it didn't really like it was kind of silly in terms of execution. That makes sense. I won't really say what it is. But those are my real complaints. The movie I thought was paced really well until like at the 2/3 mark, and then it gets good again. But it like has a weird like moment where like it kind of stops. Like you think it would end that way, even though I did like where it goes. It should have stopped there, I thought, or they could have condensed it a little more. And two, just like little silly things like that fat creature, like that just didn't, that was not scary. It was just kind of, it didn't feel like it was in like a Conjuring thing. But besides those little complaints, I really, really love the just having Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson again, and in all three of these movies. The thing I like about this one is that it still feels like James Wan's work when it comes to those two. Like those two, I think, are still great in it, and it feels like a good continuing story with them. And their chemistry is so great, and they're so awesome in all three movies. And I feel like it just stinks that this has a couple little issues for me that makes it not as good as the first two, but it still is good though. I still enjoyed it. But their chemistry is great. I thought that it has some good scary moments, even though it kind of just homages a lot of stuff at the beginning. But I thought that was fine because I just enjoy seeing homages. In the first 5 minutes, you get an homage to Exorcist, straight up shot from The Exorcist. You get a shot like Chucky running towards the screen with a knife, and then you get claws on the wall like Freddy Krueger. Like, it was interesting to see that this director put all three of those in like the first 5 minutes, and I thought that was kind of interesting, like just to see that. Not saying that makes it a good movie or a great movie with that, but like I thought that was cool. Um, I liked that the movie, like I said, it had good chemistry between the two. Like usual, like I said, that feels like it's a good continuation of James Wan's stuff, and the performances are great. Um, it is creepy. It is effective. I don't think, actually, I think overall, in terms of like, if you compare it to the first two movies, the first two Conjuring movies called The Conjuring, I could say that this is, it's weird because there are some really good scary moments in it. But like I said, there are a couple moments where, like I said, with that fat person, like it didn't work for me. It didn't feel that scary with that kind of instance because that kind of took me out of it. But like I said, I think most of the moments are really good. I think the opening is really good. I think that the ending is really intense. I think that in terms of what these three Conjuring movies do, even though, like I said, this isn't James Wan directing this one, I love the fact that all three of the Conjuring movies end on a happy note. Like they don't end like a typical horror movie. Like they, or at least one that I expect, and I really like that out of these movies. And I'm trying to remember. I think all the spin-offs, sequels, prequels, Annabelle, The Nun, La Llorona, I think all of those either end on a scary moment or they continue on in a scary moment. Like they don't feel very happy. I think that The Conjuring 1, 2, and 3 do a good job of making it feel like even though you go through this darkness and this horrible time, you're gonna make it through. And I like that the Conjuring movies do that, and I like that this one did that as well, like the first two. And the ending, like, I'm not gonna spoil it, but man, the scenes between Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson just really sold me, and just how genuine they felt, and I really, really like that about it. Um, I also think that looking at the movie as a whole, like I said, there are moments where it does not feel as delicately made as James Wan's two movies. Like I said, I think he directed the second one. I'm assuming. I think I'm sure he did, but I just really could not remember. Let me see right now. I've got it right here. Yes, it is James Wan. Okay, it was bugging me to try to remember. I thought he directed both of them, but yeah. Anyways, James Wan. He's just more competent. I think that the director of this, I don't know. I only heard that this director directed La Llorona. I don't know if he's directed any other movies. I'll have to look it up. But if he hasn't, like, his two movies are fine. Like, this one I think is better than La Llorona. And I still like parts of La Llorona. Like, sometimes it was entertaining. Sometimes it's pretty dumb. But I enjoyed parts of La Llorona. And this one I enjoyed a lot more. But it's a lesser kind of compared to, like, the first two Conjuring movies, which are the best in the franchise. And that's not to say this movie is bad or terrible. I did enjoy this movie a lot. I still thought it was entertaining. I thought the sum of its parts, the good sum of its parts for me worked more than the bad sum of its parts. And it wasn't even like bad. It was just like some pacing problems and just some stuff that's more silly than scary. But it wasn't the whole movie. It wasn't, there were some scary moments throughout, but it felt like there were a couple moments where I was like, if James Wan was here, it would have made it scarier. Which I think is, the movie's totally serviceable. It's not anything bad or terrible. It's just something that I think is good and I think it deserves a watch. I do think it was fun and enjoyable enough that I definitely recommend it personally. I'm just glad to see another film of this franchise because I do love the franchise. I need to buy the other ones. I've got all, I've got the first two Annabelles. I've got Conjuring 1 and 2, and I think that's, oh, and I got the, no, I don't have the Nun. I've only got the first two Annabelles and the first two Conjuring, so I need to get Annabelle Comes Home, La Llorona, the Nun, and this one whenever it comes out. But I don't even have all the films yet, so I should rewatch them. I'm going to do a ranking soon, but I won't be rewatching them as of now. I'm just going to rank them on how I felt initially. But that'll come out later this week or next week. It just depends on how I feel. I'm getting over this cold, so we'll see. But yeah, it was a pretty good time at the movies. I enjoyed The Conjuring 3, which it should have been called. Even though the title makes sense, of course it does, but it should have been called Conjuring 3, I think. So that's pretty much it for today. I'll see you guys in the next video. More videos coming soon this week, and I'll see you later. Take care.